rahimahullah, the author said, may Allah have mercy upon him. ثم لعمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. Then it went to, or it was for, meaning the Caliphate, Umar, son of Al-Khattab, may Allah accept his deeds. ثم لعثمان رضي الله عنه. Then to Uthman, may Allah accept his deeds. ثم لعلي بن أبي طالب رضي الله عنه. Then to Ali, son of Abu Talib, may Allah accept his deeds. وهم الخلفاء الراشدون. And they are the guided imams. Abu Bakr, of course, being the first one. We talked about him in our previous session. وَالْأَئِمَّةُ الْمُهْتَدُونَ. And they are the guided caliphs and the guided imams. Rashidun, guided. Muhtadun, guided. And quick pointer here, the Wahhabi would use the hadith of follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the guided caliphs after me. They say, whatever those guided caliphs did that the Prophet didn't do, alayhi salatu wasalam, that's a sunnah. It's not a bid'ah. Because the Prophet said, follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the guided caliphs after me. So whatever they did is a sunnah. Anything that they introduced into the religion of good is a sunnah, not a bid'ah. According to this argument, they have, number one, made the caliphs impeccable, because they are equating the sunnah of the caliphs to the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam in impeccability. If they are not, if they say no, they don't have impeccable sunnah, then what's the point of saying that what they introduce in the religion is not a bid'ah, it's a sunnah? Why say that? Because the Prophet said, they might say, follow my sunnah and the sunnah of my caliphs. Okay, so that means anything they do, we follow it with no consideration, with no distinction. They would say, no, we don't do that. Okay, so then there's no point really here in saying that what they introduce is a sunnah and not a bid'ah, because they were guided caliphs and we were commanded to follow their sunnah. If you are not equating their sunnah to that of the Prophet, in other words, despite being commanded to follow their sunnah, if they did something that doesn't comply with the religion, we would not follow them in that. And according to the Wahhabis, introducing new matters into the religion cannot be followed. It doesn't comply with the sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. So how is it then, if their sunnah is not an impeccable one, and they are possibly capable of making a mistake in religion? And if every innovation is bad according to you, Wahhabi, then there's no reason to make an excuse for them because they're the guided caliphs for introducing new things, because that's against the sunnah of the Prophet and they are not impeccable in their sunnah, if he agrees to that. If he doesn't agree to that, then he's saying they are impeccable in their sunnah, then he made them like the Prophet. Either way, that's invalid. 2, if what they did was a sunnah acceptable in the religion, yani, if they had exclusively the permission to introduce things into the religion and not the people after them, it's not permissible for others to do like them, although the Prophet said follow their sunnah. The Wahhabis will say, what's wrong with you? Those were the guided caliphs. You can't do like them. That's what they say. after they bring you the hadith that tells you to follow their sunnah. So if they are the only ones who are allowed to introduce new beneficial things into the religion, that means the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was restricted to the revelation and was not allowed to do something without permission, was not allowed to establish in the religion something without permission. So the Prophet himself could not introduce something into the religion without a permission from himself, from his determination. وَمَا يَنطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, he only utters from the revelation. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ. Either he's going to talk from revelation or he's going to make an ijtihad that's going to be absolutely correct. And many times they asked the Prophet something and he said, let me ask my Lord first. So he wouldn't just from himself bring something into the religion. And the people other than the companions are not allowed to, according to them. So only those companions, those four exclusively, have the permission to introduce new things into the religion. Not the Prophet and not those who came after them. Although the Prophet ﷺ said, follow my sunnah and theirs. And the evidence for that, according to them, the evidence that those four caliphs exclusively were allowed to introduce new matters into the religion, not the Prophet before them and not the tabi'un or anyone else after them, is that the Prophet said, follow my sunnah and the sunnah of the guided caliphs after me. So according to the Wahhabis, follow the sunnah of the guided caliphs after me is interpreted as the guided caliphs are allowed to introduce new things into the religion. So how did they get that? How does that hadith mean that? It doesn't, of course. And we have more arguments for that. Say to them, Imam Ali, he burned some people alive as the caliph. He burned them alive. So do you say, O Wahhabi, that burning people alive is a sunnah because he was a guided caliph? Until now, I haven't met one who dared to say yes. I won't be surprised, though. Out of stubbornness, if you would. And why did Ibn Abbas disagree with Ali about that if we're obligated to follow the sunnah of the guided caliphs, no matter what they do? So that's just some ammo for you for that hadith. A lot of people get stuck when talking to a Wahhabi, and the Wahhabi brings up this hadith. Ash-sharhu, the explanation. يجب الإيمان بحقية خلافة الأربعة على حسب ترتيبهم في الخلافة. It is obligatory to believe in the justice and entitlement and the deservingness of the caliphate of the four, in accordance with their sequence in caliphate, that each one was a rightful caliph in his succession. لأن الصحابة بما فيهم من علي رضي الله عنه رضوا بذلك. Because the companions, including Ali, may Allah accept his deeds, accepted that. ولا نعني بهذا أنه لا خليفة راشد في الأمة سوى الأربعة. And we do not mean by this that there is no guided caliph in the nation but these four. Notice here, Khalifa has ta' marbuta. Ta' marbuta is feminine. But then came the adjective Rashid. No ta' marbuta, so don't say Khalifa Rashida. So Khalifa with a ta' marbuta, that's a description for a male specifically. a description for a male bearing a ta' marbuta. بل الحسن بن علي الذي بايعه المسلمون خليفة راشد. In fact, Al-Hasan, son of Ali, to whom the Muslims paid allegiance, was a guided caliph. وكذلك عمر بن عبد العزيز, and likewise Umar, son of Abdul Aziz, لكنهما أقل مرتبة من الأربعة. However, those two have a lower rank than the four.